Welcome to Through a Glass Darkly Radio. You're listening to us on United Public Radio. And the intro song was Mark of the Doomslayer by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Welcome back, everyone. Just got to take care of something really quick here. There's all sorts of crazy stuff that's going on. All right. Let's see. How we doing on comments? How you doing, Scott? Good to see you, Apex and Spiritual Ascension. I got a little bit of a late start today. I was working on a financial modeling problem for my financial model for the channel, but now it is all fixed. I know that's too much information, but that's what I was doing. And I don't like to stop in the middle of things, which I sort of didn't. I had to kind of go with a less than optimal compromise, but I can do that after the show. Dana Scully. Hello. Let's see. Yeah, it's constant. Today was a bit of a disaster. Yeah, I mean, I had an interview scheduled that didn't happen. I mean, fortunately, I have all October done, and that's why I have October done, because of no shows and stuff like that. And Logan Clark writes, I had a dream you had a file on me, and I found it in a shed. When I moved the box, it was in a cockroach. It was in a cockroach. A cockroach crawled away. What the hell does that mean? I have no idea what that means. Also, I put this in the comments section on that 999 synchronicity, but in case you didn't see it, yesterday while I was kind of burning incense and whatnot, there were a murder of ravens flew over my head in the middle of it, and traveling from east to west. And guess how many were in that murder of ravens? Well, I mean, you all know the answer. So I guess put it out there and see what people say. But you all know the answer. So no, 365. Come on. That's a lot of ravens. Those are big birds. They're like 4 to 5 feet wingspan. Yeah, Scott's got it. Are they? It's a murder of crows, but yeah, maybe it's not a murder of. Yeah, it's definitely 9. Um, that's a good question. I want to know: is it a murder of ravens or a congress of ravens? Mm. Oh, yeah. It's an unkindness, conspiracy, or parliament of ravens. What? It's a parliament of owls, that's for sure. Wow. You learn something new every day. It's definitely not murder, and it's definitely not Congress. Oh, 369 is the number of the universe. They're definitely both they're both corvids. That's why I just assumed murder, but it's not. Yep. All right, health plan. I had no idea UFC was on. I stream every Sunday at this time. Murder of crows is certain, but it's not a murder of ravens. All right, I'm gonna get started for people who came here who wanted to hear about Chaos Magic. I also use these radio shows to kind of do research for future guests. So I have a future guest who is basically the inventor or the creator of Chaos Magic. So you can all look that up. I mean, you don't have to look up. It'll be in kind of what I discussed today. So yeah. So anyway, just a reminder, a few things. Lots of new subscribers, so welcome. I hope you stay subscribed. For those who've been long-term subscribers, YouTube likes to unsubscribe. Excuse me, likes to unsubscribe people. So if you subscribe and think you are subscribed, just double check to make sure that YouTube's algorithm, for whatever reason, decided not to. Let's see. Okay, health plan says, Sean, in all seriousness, when you have time, consider strongly going to Gateway at the Monroe Institute for OBE experience and connecting to consciousness. I agree. Um, my issue is not money right now; it's time. So I know what needs to happen for time to free up, but I'm not going to say that publicly. But yeah, what was I going to say? Oh, okay. So that's that with subscribers. Also, I am very clear about this. I come up with a topic and then I have AI do deep research, and what I'm reading was generated by AI. This is the only thing for like writing wise that I ever use AI for to generate, and it's just because I work 100 hours a week. I just don't have time to do this level of research with a full-time day job and numerous other kind of things going on, one of which is this channel. So it is what it is. If you don't like that, that's fine. But I just want to make sure that I'm clear for my own sake and my own integrity. This is the only kind of thing that I generate. Well, only writing that I generate with AI. Thumbnails, absolutely. I use AI to do images for, and then I sometimes use AI to insert various video, like a video sub videos that illustrate what what an interviewer is going through sometimes. But on the writing side, this is all my other writing is pure, not AI. So I just want to put that out there. Oh, congratulations, Logan, about doing. So Logan writes, I'm doing it in a year or so. I'm excited. That's the Monroe program. All right. Let us get started for folks who are here for the Chaos Magick intro. If I could only pull the freaking thing up. Come on. Go away. All right, there we go. All right. Chaos Magick. History, philosophy, techniques, key figures, and modern applications. Chaos Magick, spelled with a K, but it's also spelled without a K, and that's Magick or MIG, or sorry, Magick or Magic, is a modern tradition of Western occultism that emerged in England in the mid-1970s. It developed as part of the wider neo-pagan and esoteric revival of that era, drawing on diverse earlier magical traditions while radically breaking from their constraints. Practitioners of Chaos Magick sought to strip away what they saw as the dogma, superstition, and rigid symbolism of prior occult systems, reducing magic to a set of core techniques for achieving tangible results. In place of adherence to any one spiritual doctrine, Chaos magicians emphasized belief as a tool, holding that reality as we perceive it is conditioned by our beliefs and can thus be altered by willfully changing those beliefs. This pragmatic, individualistic approach to magic has led Chaos Magick to be characterized by scholars as an invented religion of the late 20th century, one that blends occult practice with postmodern philosophy. Some commentators even liken the movement's playful, anti-dogmatic spirit to the parody religion Discordianism. In the decades since its inception, Chaos Magick has profoundly influenced contemporary occult subcultures, pioneering techniques of conscious paradigm shifting and inspiring new intersections between magic, science, art, and popular culture. This show will provide a comprehensive overview of Chaos Magick, including its history and antecedents, core philosophy, signature practices, key figures in its development, and its modern manifestations in the 21st century. Okay, let's start with the history. So the origins and influences. Chaos Magick emerged from the matrix of 20th century Western esotericism, but its roots extend to earlier occult innovators. A major influence was the English artist and occultist Austin Osman Spare, who lived from 1886 to 1956, whose ideas and methods formed a foundational basis for Chaos Magick. As an aside, I kept hearing this man's name over and over again over the last week, to the point that I started having dreams about him, or had like a series of dreams one night about this guy. So something or someone wants me to talk about this guy. So Spare developed techniques of sigilization, the creation of personalized magical symbols, and the use of induced trance states, which he termed gnosis, to power those sigils. Although Spare died before Chaos Magick as a movement took shape, he has been described as the grandfather of Chaos Magick due to his innovative rejection of traditional ceremonial magic in favor of a more individualistic psychological approach. Spare's work, especially the Book of Pleasure in 1913, introduced the concept that gods and spirits are in fact complexes within the subconscious mind and can be created or influenced by the magician, a notion that directly prefigures Chaos Magick's view of reality as subjectively constructed. Another important precursor was Aleister Crowley, who lived from 1875 to 1947, the famed British occultist and founder of Thelema. Crowley's syncretic approach to magic and his emphasis on experimentation and scientific method influenced later Chaos magicians who admired his iconoclasm and efforts at deconditioning the mind from ordinary perceptions. Crowley had promoted the idea that rigid moral or religious frameworks should not bind the magician. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, is what he said, and this liberation of will informed Chaos Magick's radical individualism. By the 1960s and 70s, the wider culture's turn toward postmodern and countercultural ideas created a fertile environment for Chaos Magick to crystallize. Influences ranged from the absurdist anti-religion of Discordianism to the anarchic energy of the punk movement and the writings of futurist thinkers like Robert Anton Wilson. All these currents questioned established reality tunnels and encouraged a fluid, relativistic view of truth, themes that chaos magicians would take up in their own philosophy. Then we talk about the emergence of chaos magic in the 1970s. Chaos magic proper began to take form in the mid-1970s in London, notably through the activities of Peter J. Carroll and Ray Sherwin, who are commonly regarded as the movement's founders. Carroll and Sherwin believed that contemporary occult groups such as ceremonial magical orders and pagan covens had become too religious in character, mired in elaborate symbolism and dogma. In response, they envisioned a new approach to magic stripped down to its most basic techniques. An oft-quoted line from Carroll captures this rebellious spirit. Quote, "Magic will not free itself from occultism until we have strangled the last astrologer with the guts of the last spiritual master," end quote. This colorful metaphor expresses the early chaos magicians' disdain for what they saw as needless mystification in existing traditions. Instead, they advocated a pragmatic, results-oriented practice of magic, free from any requirement to believe in metaphysical dogmas or to adhere to a single system of symbols. In 1976 to 77, Carroll and Sherwin announced the formation of the first chaos magic organization, the Illuminates of Thanateros, the IoT. The name Thanatos, death, and Eros, love, signifying the primal forces they saw as harnessed in chaos magic, and hinted at the order's tongue-in-cheek attitude with the acronym IoT, also referencing input, output, and computing, referencing a techno-magical sensibility. Actually, they now use IoT to describe the Internet of Things. Very, very strange synchronicity. The seminal year for chaos magic's public emergence was 1978, which saw the publication of two influential texts, Liber Null by Carroll and the Book of Results by Sherwin. These slim volumes, essentially manuals of chaos magic, were the first published works to explicitly outline the principles of chaos magic. Liber Null, Latin for nothing book, presented techniques such as sigils, meditation, and paradigm piracy, along with philosophical arguments for the flexibility of belief. Sherwin's Book of Results focused on practical sigil magic and provided step-by-step instructions for casting sigils to obtain one's desires. The term chaos magic itself entered into print largely through these works. From the start, chaos magic differentiated itself by its eclectic borrowing from many sources and its insistence that the power of magic lies in the magician's will and belief, not in any external symbol or ritual propriety. In the early 1980s, chaos magic remained a small avant-garde movement but began to spread in occult circles in the UK and beyond. New groups sprang up, such as the short-lived Circle of Chaos in Yorkshire in 1982, that included David Lee, a magician who would later author books on chaos magic. The IoT, which initially centered in London, expanded internationally, notably to Germany, where Ralph Tegtmeier, known as Frater UD, established a branch after translating Liber Null into German. By the mid-1980s, chaos magic had gained enough momentum that practitioners outside of Carroll and Sherwin's immediate circle began publishing their own interpretations. Phil Hine, who would become one of chaos magic's best-known expositors, emerged during this period alongside others like Julian Wilde and Joel Baracco. They released accessible writings in zines, which are basically self-published magazines, that helped spread chaos magic globally, including via the early internet. Hine's book, Condensed Chaos, first published in 1995, and later Prime Chaos, which was, I guess, it was published before Condensed Chaos, apparently. That doesn't sound right. But anyway, they provided practical guides that demystified chaos for a broader readership and stressed its adaptability to individual needs. During the 1980s, chaos magic information was often disseminated through magical zines and small press journals. These grassroots publications, such as The Lamp of Thoth, published out of a Leeds occult bookstore, and later Chaos International, served as forums for chaos magicians to share techniques, results, and radical ideas. The zine culture surrounding Chaos Magic reflected its anti-heretical or hierarchical and democratic ethos. Anybody could contribute their experiences or theories, leading to lively debates and rapid evolution of the discourse. Zines from this era show chaos magicians engaging not only with ritual practices, but with wider topics like politics, sexuality, art, and science, often through an iconoclastic lens. In effect, Chaos Magic in the 1980s functioned as an open source, continuously reinvented tradition, rather than a fixed doctrine. Notably, some participants even pronounced chaos is dead by the late 1980s as a provocative statement, reflecting a reluctance to let chaos magic ossify into a new dogma. Despite such declarations, the movement's amorphous and anarchistic nature ensured it would simply mutate into new forms rather than truly disappear. By the 1990s, chaos magic had firmly established itself in occult subcultures across the Western world and began to intersect strikingly with popular culture. From its inception, chaos magic carried the notion that any symbol system could be used in magic, including those from fiction or mass media, since all symbol systems are equally arbitrary and thus equally valid. The belief invested in them is what matters. An early example of this principle was the adoption of the eight-pointed chaos star, or chaos sphere, as an emblem of chaos magic. Originally devised in Michael Moorcock's fantasy novels as a symbol of the abstract force of chaos, the eight-arrowed star was borrowed by chaos magicians in the late 1970s and 1980s and remains one of the movement's iconic signs. Chaos magicians in the 1990s also experimented with incorporating elements from H.P. Lovecraft's horror literature into their magical work. Occultist Kenneth Grant, a student of Crowley and Sparr, had earlier pioneered the blending of Lovecraft's fictional mythos with esoteric practice. Building on this, some chaos magicians performed rituals invoking Lovecraftian entities, for example, the Great Old Ones, as metaphorical personifications of cosmic forces. Phil Hines, the Pseudonomicon, in 1994, collected such Lovecraftian rites, exemplifying chaos magic's willingness to treat modern myth as raw material for magic. This period also saw chaos magic surface in multimedia arts. In the comic book realm, Scottish writer Grant Morrison integrated chaos magic themes directly into The Invisibles, a graphics novel series. Morrison described The Invisibles as a hyper sigil, an extended magical sigil in the form of an ongoing story intended to produce effects in reality. Indeed, he credited his practice of chaos magic and the creation of this hyper sigil with influencing events in his own life and the culture at large. Morrison's work, alongside his public speeches, such as the influential Pop Magic essay and a presentation at the 2000 Disinfo convention in New York, brought chaos magic to a wider audience beyond traditional occult circles. Simultaneously, figures like Genesis P. Orridge, I don't know if it's Porridge or P. Orridge, but it's spelled P-Orridge, a performance artist and musician known from the industrial music band Throbbing Gristle and later Psychic TV, helped introduce chaos magic to avant-garde art and music scenes. In 1981, P. Orridge co-founded the Temple the Temple of Psychic Youth, TOPY, T-O-P-Y, an organization that blended ritual magic, music, and art, and anarchic counterculture. TOPY practitioners incorporated chaos magic techniques, especially sigils and sex magic, into their rites, using video art and live performance as forms of magical expression. This activity raised awareness of chaos magic in subcultures such as acid house dance culture and the wider industrial music and art milieu. Notably, William S. Burroughs, the novelist who pioneered the cut-up literary technique, was an associate of P. Orridge. He himself was intrigued by chaos magic and was inducted as an honorary member of the IoT in the early 1990s. Burroughs believed the random juxtaposition of cut-up text could have divinatory or conjurative power, an idea very much in harmony with chaos magic's view that meaning can be discovered or created from apparent randomness. By the end of the 1990s, chaos magic had thus transitioned from an obscure British occult offshoot offshoot into an international interdisciplinary phenomenon. Its influence could be seen in underground literature, music, visual art, and even implicitly in the emerging cyberpunk culture that valued hacking and system subversion. And it often parallels are often drawn with reality hacking and chaos magic. Importantly, chaos magic never solidified into a single organization or creed. Even the IoT underwent schisms and ceased to be the sole center of activity. Instead, chaos magic persisted as a loose collection of practitioners and an ongoing discussion about the nature of magic and reality. In the 2000s and 2010s, chaos magic continued to evolve, interfacing with the rise of the internet and social media. The fundamental ideas of chaos magic, flexibility of belief, do-it-yourself techniques, melding of pop culture with the esoteric, proved highly adaptable to online occult communities. For example, a group of chaotes in the mid-2000s formed DKMU, an informal network originally called Dominion of Chaos, chaos spelled K-A-O-S, etc., which conducted a collaborative project known as the Assault on Reality. A key element of this project was the creation of the Ellis Sigil, also called the Linking Sigil, a symbol intended to connect works of magic and enchanted locations worldwide into a shared network. Practitioners would draw or tag I don't even know what this shape is. It looks like a line, a vertical line with a horizontal line extending from left to right, starting at the vertical line in the middle. So bisects the vertical line on the right side. So the shaped Ellis sigil in various places or incorporated into spells as a way of linking their individual efforts to a larger web of magical energy. This initiative spread via internet forums, exemplifies how chaos magic principles have been applied in digital age communities to foster a participatory collective form of magic without centralized leadership. Meanwhile, traditional occult orders influenced by chaos magic persist, and new writings keep emerging. Magicians like Alan Chapman, writing in the late 2000s, praised chaos magic for breathing new life into Western occultism, freeing it from excessive moralism and an antiquated dogma. At the same time, Chapman and others have criticized or have critiqued chaos magic's lack of deeper initiatory structure or long-term developmental framework for practitioners. These critiques spurred discussions about how chaos magic might integrate with older wisdom traditions or evolve into a more mature path, sometimes dubbed post-chaos magic. Nonetheless, innovations in chaos magic continue into the 2020s, often taking advantage of new platforms. Practitioners share sigils on social media, conduct group rituals via video streaming, and even embed magical intent into memes and webcomics. The history of chaos magic, then, is one of constant reinvention. True to its name, chaos magic remains a dynamic, self-transforming current within modern esotericism, one that embraces change as the only constant. All right, in terms of philosophy, chaos magic is underpinned by a distinct philosophy that challenges conventional metaphysical beliefs and emphasizes subjective experience over objective truth. At its heart is the idea that nothing is true, everything is permitted, a motto borrowed from a mythical maxim of the old man of the mountain that chaos magicians often invoke to summarize their stance. In practice, this means chaos magic rejects any claims of absolute truth or reality. All laws, gods, or symbols are viewed as human-constructed and thus mutable. As religious studies scholar Hugh Urban observes, chaos magic represents a union of traditional occult techniques with applied postmodernism, a skepticism about whether any objective truth can be known. Instead of seeking a single true model of the spiritual universe, chaos magicians treat belief itself as an instrument. The world as it is normally perceived can be changed by deliberately changing those beliefs. In other words, if one's worldview is just a lens, the magician can swap lenses at will to achieve desired effects. This core tenet marks a significant departure from most magical traditions that ask adherents to accept a particular cosmology or pantheon. Chaos magic posits that belief is a conscious act of will, not an involuntary state. One of the movement's foundational assertions is that beliefs are tools for achieving effects. A chaos magician can adopt a belief in a certain magical paradigm, say ceremony, angelic magic, or shamanic spirit work, for as long as it is useful, and then discard it and assume a completely different belief system. For example, a techno-scientific view or atheistic stance. For another, working. This deliberate paradigm shifting is often illustrated by Peter Carroll's suggestion of assigning different belief systems to the faces of a die and role-playing whichever worldview the die roll dictates. The exercise teaches the magician flexibility and deconditioning, freeing the mind from the constraints of any one perspective. Phil Hines similarly stressed the need to thoroughly decondition oneself from social and mental conditioning, noting that the ego clings to stable identities and beliefs as a defense. Chaos Magick, by systematically breaking and reforming belief structures, aims to reveal the ego's mutable nature and to unleash the magician's latent creative potential outside the usual boundaries of self. This philosophical stance owes much to the influence of Austin Osman Spare. Spare considered that belief carries a kind of psychic energy, which normally becomes locked up in rigid mental structures. So, for instance, religious dogmas or personal limitations. He advocated freeing this energy by rejecting all fixed beliefs, essentially emptying oneself of all preconceptions, so that the energy could be reinvested in new aims. For Spare, the ultimate reality was a sort of undifferentiated chaos, or Kia, K-I-A, a state of infinite potential beyond form. Belief, in his view, imposed artificial order and thus limits on this chaos. Chaos Magick inherits this idea. Chaos is seen not necessarily as randomness alone, but as the raw creative flux of existence, the unformed potentiality, which contains everything in a state prior to conception. By mastering belief, the magician taps into that potential. In practice, chaos magicians often say they do not believe in their rituals or gods in the ordinary sense. Rather, they choose to believe for the duration of a ritual, in whatever concept will yield results, and then later disbelieve or adopt a new belief as needed. This fluid approach allows them to make use of any religious or magical system without being bound by it. As one commentator put it, all occult systems are seen as arbitrary symbol systems that work only because of the belief of the practitioner. In line with its view of belief, Chaos Magick places the individual's experience and will at the center of its metaphysics. The only authority in Chaos Magick is the magician's own experience. If a technique produces the intended result, it is true enough for that moment. If not, it is discarded or reworked. This radical empiricism applied to magic means that chaos magicians often engage in self-directed experimentation, keeping what works for them and ignoring what doesn't, even if traditional lore says otherwise. As a result, subjectivity is embraced. Magical results might be psychological, spiritual, or even coincidental. But what matters is the impact on the practitioner's reality. Chaos Magick's extreme eclecticism was noted by scholar Kenneth Granholm, who wrote that it dwarfs that of its predecessors in occultism. It borrows from Eastern meditation, Western ceremonial magic, shamanism, voodoo, chaos theory, science fiction, and more, freely combining them. Underlying this is an aversion to dogma. Any set doctrine is viewed as a limitation to be overcome. Unlike Golden Dawn-style magic or Wicca, there's no prescribed liturgy or belief in chaos magic. Only a set of methods and a general philosophical outlook that nothing is true in an absolute sense. Organizationally, Chaos Magick eschews the strict hierarchy of lodges and secret societies. There's typically no guru or grandmaster handing down truth, which is a conscious rejection of the Masonic or initiatory degree structures in older esoteric groups. Even when chaos magicians gather in groups, like the IoT or other circles, the structure is often loose, and each member is expected to develop their own style. This reflects a deep libertarian streak in chaos magic philosophy, a magical anarchism where each individual's will is sovereign. Interestingly, the emphasis on subjective reality and personal truth has led some chaos magicians to question even the notion of a stable, singular self. Influenced by postmodern and post-structuralist thought, chaos magic discourse sometimes speaks of the self as fragmented or fluid. If one could hold multiple belief systems, one can also play with multiple identities. Some practitioners adopt different magical personas for different workings, further illustrating the idea that the self can be a tool as well. This philosophical play can lead to a paradox. Many forms of occultism purport to develop or perfect the self, but chaos magic suggests the self is not a fixed essence to perfect, rather, an assemblage that can be broken down and remade. In resolving this, chaos magic often frames its goal not as refining an essential self, but as continuous creativity and self transformation. It values innovation, spontaneity, and flexibility, effectively treating life as an artwork or game in which the magician is free to rewrite the rules. As one academic analysis summarized, chaos magic concepts of chaos allow individuals to embrace iconoclasm, creativity, potentiality, uncertainty, and above all, change itself. Despite its anti-theoretical stance of nothing is true, chaos magic does have a pragmatic theory of how magic works, centered on psychological principles. The prevailing view is that magic operates by impressing the magician's will or intent deeply into the subconscious mind, which then affects reality, either through unexplained means or through changes in the magician's perception and behaviors. To do this, chaos magicians employ what is called the Gnostic state, a special altered state of consciousness in which the mind is one-pointed and distractions, including doubt, are silenced. In Spar's original model, during gnosis, the sigil or intent is launched into the subconscious because the subconscious is believed to have the power to enact the magician's will, either through Jungian acausal connections or as a conduit to actual metaphysical forces, depending on one's interpretation. Chaos magic thus does not posit external spirits or deities as necessary for magic. Instead, the practitioner's psyche contains all the needed mechanisms. As Phil Hine put it, demons and angels can be seen as culturally and historically conditioned aspects of our psyche, meaning the magician can personify parts of their mind as spirits, if useful, or dispense with those personifications and treat everything as mind and energy. This psycho-magical theory is part of chaos magic's inheritance from the early 20th century occultism, which saw a trend toward psychologizing magic. But chaos magic pushes it further by implying that even the self that experiences these things is a construct. In summary, the philosophy of chaos magic can be seen as a form of conscious epistemological relativism applied to practical sorcery. It tells the musician all systems are arbitrary, so choose your system of the moment wisely. Believe in it completely while it serves you, and then be ready to change it. Belief is a tool, ritual is a means of focusing will, and the only truth is what the magician successfully makes true for themselves. This empowers practitioners to experiment across the entire spectrum of human belief, from evoking ancient gods one day to performing a sci-fi tech ritual the next, without contradiction. The potential downside, as critics have noted, is a lack of a moral or cosmological compass, but adherents counter this that an individual's true will or intuition can guide ethical choices even amid paradigm shifts. Ultimately, chaos magic's philosophical contribution is a bold demonstration of methodological skepticism and spirituality. Take nothing on faith, test everything, and nothing is true, not even that, and therefore everything is permissible as a tool for the will. Chaos magic is best known for an set of innovative techniques that reflect its ethos of personal experimentation and its focus on results. Because chaos magic proclaims flexibility and eclecticism, virtually any ritual or method from any tradition can be embodied by a chaos magician. As one survey notes, individuals involved in chaos magic have used the full range of magical practices and systems drawn from a long history. However, several key practices are particularly characteristic of chaos magic and frequently discussed in its literature. These include sigil magic, the induction of gnosis or trance states, various forms of invocation and evocation, which are often reinterpreted in psychological terms. The creation of servitors and the use of divinatory or randomization methods, like the cut-up technique. What distinguishes Chaos Magick's use of these techniques is the way they are stripped down to the functional core and often given a contemporary, non-dogmatic twist. Below, we examine some of the most common practices. So the first is sigilization. The practice of crafting and launching sigils is the hallmark technique of Chaos Magick. A sigil is a symbolic representation of a magician's specific desire or intent compressed into an abstract glyph. Chaos magicians typically create sigils using the method first articulated by Austin Osman Spar. The process begins with formulating a clear statement of intent. For example, it is my will to obtain a new job. The magician then encodes the statement into a glyph by removing repeated letters and vowels and artistically combining the remaining letters into a new symbol that no longer overtly reads as the original phrase. The resulting sigil is a kind of monogram of thought. It embodies the desire in a way the conscious mind cannot immediately recognize, which is intentional. According to Spar, Chaos Magick generally, the conscious mind's attachment to the desire is an obstacle. What is needed is to impress the desire upon the subconscious without the conscious ego's interference or lust for result. Once the sigil is constructed, the magician must charge it and launch it. This is where the induction of a Gnostic state becomes crucial. The practitioner enters a state of heightened focus or trance. Spar calls it vacuity, or single-pointed concentration, at the peak of which the sigil is internalized and then released from the mind. Chaos magicians have a repertoire of ways to reach this peak state of consciousness, broadly characterized by Peter Carroll as inhibitory or excitatory techniques. Inhibitory techniques involve quieting the mind and reducing sensory input. For example, deep meditation, breath control, or staring at the sigil for long periods. Whereas excitatory techniques involve ramping up philosophical or emotional arousal. For example, sexual orgasm, intense physical exertion, dance, drumming, or use of certain psychoactive substances. In either case, the aim is to obtain a flash of ecstatic trance where the mind is momentarily emptied of all but the sigil. At that moment, say at the instant of orgasm or the crescendo of a dance, the practitioner concentrates on the sigil, mentally launches it into the depths of their unconscious. Immediately afterward, the magician must forget the sigil completely, severing all conscious attachment to the outcome. As Spar himself advised, there should be a deliberate striving to forget it once the sigil is cast. This act of forgetting is believed to allow the desire to take root in the subconscious without being sabotaged by doubt or obsessive longing from the conscious mind. The sigil then works over time to actualize the intent according to Chaos Magick theory. Whether one views this as a psychological mechanism, the sigil implants a goal in the unconscious that then influences one's behavior and perception to fulfill it, or a mystical one. The sigil sends out a mystical call that attracts synchronicities or spiritual aid, is left to the practitioner's own model of reality. Ray Sherwin described the sigil method succinctly. The magician acknowledges a desire, lists the appropriate symbols, and arranges them in an easily visualized glyph. Using any of the Gnostic techniques, he reifies, which means to make real, the sigil, and then by force of will hurls it into his subconscious, from where the sigil can begin to work unencumbered by desire. This technique in various personalized forms is ubiquitous in Chaos Magick practice. Its appeal lies in its simplicity and efficiency. No elaborate ceremonial apparatus or external spirits are required, only paper, pen, and one's mind and body. In modern occultism, the Chaos Magick sigil method has been highly influential, being adopted by practitioners and other traditions as a general method of wish fulfillment or spell casting. Then there's gnosis and trance. As noted, achieving a Gnostic state is central to many Chaos Magick operations, not just sigils. The concept of gnosis in Chaos Magick, borrowed from Spar, who in turn was inspired by historical Gnostic mystics to some extent, refers to any altered state of consciousness that serves to quiet the linear, skeptical mind and focus the will. Chaos magicians place great emphasis on practicing various methods of attaining gnosis. These methods can range from meditation techniques, zazen, pranayama breathing, sensory deprivation, to the more ecstatic methods, hyperventilation, spinning, intense emotional arousal, chanting, flagellation, or sexual stimulation. The goal is always twofold: concentration and dissociation. Concentration means the mind is narrowed to a single point, the intention or object of ritual, and dissociation means the normal ego consciousness is disrupted or blinded for a moment, allowing the magician's will to sink deeper. In practice, chaos magicians often incorporate sex magic as a potent form of gnosis. During the moment of orgasm, the mind experiences a brief no-mind state, which can be directed toward magical intention. Similarly, intense pain or fear can produce a burst of single-minded awareness, though such methods are less commonly used. Some chaos magicians also train in hypnosis or neuro-linguistic programming / NLP techniques to induce trance and suggestibility in themselves, effectively hacking their own psychological filters. Because of this focus, chaos magic is sometimes described as psychological magic. It frequently frames spells and rituals as a means of reshaping the magician's mind, which in turn reshapes experience. It is worth noting that chaos magic's approach to trance is very utilitarian. One enters gnosis only for as long as needed to perform the work, then returns to ordinary consciousness and moves on. There's less emphasis on maintaining a permanent mystical state or mystical enlightenment, contrasting with Eastern meditation systems. Gnosis is a tool, much like belief is a tool employed tactically. Invocation and evocation. Chaos magicians do make use of invocation, calling a deity or archetype into oneself, and evocation, summoning an entity into manifestation. But they often interpret these practices in non-literal or non-traditional ways. In classic ceremonial magic, invocation, evocation assume the objective reality of spirits, gods, angels, etc. Chaos magic offers a different perspective. Such entities can be treated as useful fictions or constructs that represent particular forces or psychological complexes. As one source puts it, chaos magicians tend to regard the demons, angels, or other spiritual beings of classic ritual magic as culturally and historically conditioned. In other words, products of human belief that nonetheless can be interacted with. A chaos magician might perform a summoning ritual from a grimoire, but with the understanding that the demon is part of their own mind or a symbol of some energy rather than an external fallen angel. More provocatively, chaos magic opens the door to invoking modern gods, figures from fiction or pop culture, on the premise that if belief empowers an entity, any sufficiently beloved or feared symbol can serve. An oft-cited example is that a chaos magician might choose to invoke Mickey Mouse or Superman instead of a traditional god of wealth, reasoning that Mickey Mouse as a symbol of corporate capitalism might wield more influence in the collective psyche today than an obscure demon of greed like Mammon. This approach exemplifies chaos magic's irreverence and pragmatism. Indeed, there are accounts of chaos magicians in the 1990s invoking characters like Batman or utilizing the mythology of the Jedi from Star Wars in ritual, not out of genuine religious devotion to those characters, but as a way to tap qualities or energies those archetypes represent. Additionally, chaos practitioners are free to syncretize pantheons and invent new composite entities. If one needs a war deity, one could invoke Mars, Thor, and Kali interchangeably or merge their abilities or their attributes, as all are seen as masks of the same basic concept. This interchangeability is taken even further by some who equate comic book heroes with ancient gods, often drawing parallels between Hermes, the messenger god, and DC Comics' The Flash. Grant Morrison argued that the gods of old and the icons of pop culture are equally valid archetypes, just different cultural glasses for more universal ideas. Hence, in ritual, one could use a modern icon to stand in for an older deity or vice versa. Despite this playfulness, the techniques of invocation, evocation, and chaos magic can look similar outwardly to those in other traditions. The practitioner may use visualization, dramatic roleplay, or temporary self-identification with a deity form invoking a god form. What changes is the mindset. It is done with a light touch and a willingness to suspend disbelief for the duration. This method has been described as plug-and-play magic. You plug into a belief system or spirit when needed and unplug when finished. Then there's the concept of servitors and constructs. Related to invocation is the Chaos Magick practice of creating servitors. A servitor is essentially a custom-designed spiritual entity or thought form created by the magician to perform a certain task or function. In older Western occultism, similar ideas exist. So, for instance, the tulpa in Tibetan mysticism or artificial elementals in occult parlance. But chaos magicians have made servitor creation a common practice, approaching it almost like programming an astral robot. The magician defines the servitor's purpose, gives it a name and sigil, programs it with certain attributes, and then releases it to do its work, which might be to protect the magician, to attract opportunities, to inspire creativity, etc. Because chaos magicians view such constructs as extensions of their mind, they're possibly able to act autonomously once created. There's no inherent fear or taboo in making new spirits. Some even create multiple servitors to handle different aspects of their lives, essentially populating their personal universe with a custom pantheon of entities they know are their own creations. Over time, if a servitor becomes very powerful or is used by many people, chaos magicians say it can evolve into an egregore, a group entity, a group-created entity or group mind that exists independently of any one individual. An example of the aforementioned is the aforementioned Ellis sigil. Initially a symbol, it has accrued so much usage and mythos among practitioners that some treat Ellis as a deity-like presence, representing connectivity and anarchic magic. The line between psychology and spirit blurs here. An egregore can be seen as a psychological meme complex, or literally as a new spirit born of collective belief. Chaos Magick is comfortable with either interpretation, again applying the meta belief that what matters is how one relates to it. Then there's divination and the cut-up technique. Chaos magicians often incorporate elements of chaos and randomness into their practice, reflecting the idea that novel patterns and messages emerge from the unpredictable. Traditional divination tools like the I Ching and Tarot are used, but often with the understanding that they are random generators, which allow the subconscious to project meaning. A uniquely chaos magic approach to divination is the use of random text through the cut-up technique, borrowed from William S. Burroughs and Brian Gibson, or Gisson, or Geisen, I don't know how to pronounce it. The cut-up technique involves literally cutting up written text, newspapers, books, one's own writing, and rearranging the fragments to form new phrases. Burroughs, who was both an avant-garde artist and a chaos magic practitioner, believed cut-ups could reveal hidden truths and even predict future events. He stated that when you cut into the present, the future leaks out, reporting that he often recognized things in cut-up text that later occurred in real life. Chaos magicians use cut-ups as a form of bibliomancy or scrying. By randomizing information, they invite synchronicity and intuition to uncover messages from the universal mind or their own deep mind. The cut-up method is also seen as a magical act of breaking control by scrambling language, the primary tool of conscious thought. One might momentarily break the hold of ordinary reality on the mind. Genesis Peorage described cut-ups as a way to identify and short-circuit control mechanisms in one's life, a means to describe and reveal reality by literally cutting through it. In a broader sense, chaos magicians practice a kind of synchromysticism, observing coincidences and patterns in the chaos of daily life, such as random media or events, and treating those as guidance or magical dialogue. This mindset turns even passive activities like watching movies or surfing the web into potential occult experiences if approached with the right consciousness. Other practices. Chaos Magick's toolkit is extensive. Some additional practices include dream work, such as incubating or interpreting dreams for insight, often aided by sigils placed under pillars. Energy manipulation, which involves drawing on practices from Reiki or Qigong, but within the esoteric framework. simply feeling and moving energy as one perceives it. And group meta rituals, where multiple magicians agree to work under a shared temporary belief. For example, all pretending to be members of a future magical society as an experiment in collective reality shifting. Some chaos magicians influenced by Eastern mysticism or yoga also incorporate asana and mantra, but they might just as readily chant the lyrics of a pop song as a mantra if it has personal significance. The underlying thread in all these practices is that results are what count. If chanting Om produces a trance, good. If chanting the theme from a TV show produces the same trance, also good. Perhaps even more fun, which Chaos Magick considers a virtue. Many chaos texts note the value of laughter and not taking oneself too seriously as a method to evade dogmatism. Before moving on, it's important to note that ethical guidelines in chaos magic are largely left to the individual. Traditional concepts like the Wiccan Reda, harm none, or ceremonial magic's warnings about karma are not inherent to chaos magic, though individual chaotes may choose to adopt ethical codes from other systems or their own conscience. The focus on personal responsibility is implied. Since you choose your beliefs, you also choose your ethics. Some chaos magicians adopt a form of magical utilitarianism, judge techniques by their outcome and well-being produced, or follow personal honor codes. The movement's literature often encourages self-reflection to accompany self-empowerment, warning that the freedom chaos magic offers should not collapse into mere self-indulgence or unexamined egotism. In sum, chaos magic's practices are as diverse as the imaginations of its practitioners. By emphasizing creativity and efficacy over tradition, chaos magicians have liberated themselves to use any and all techniques, from ancient sorcery to future cyber rituals, in the pursuit of their will. This has made chaos magic a rich laboratory of technique within modern occultism, one that continues to generate novel practices as each practitioner contributes their own life hacks for reality. All right, now let's talk about key figures in chaos magic. Because chaos magic is a decentralized, non-dogmatic movement, it does not have formal prophets or saints. However, certain individuals have been highly influential in formulating its theory and spreading its practice. Here we profile several key figures often associated with chaos magic, including early inspirations and major contributors. We'll start with Austin Osman Spare. Austin Osman Spare, let's see. An English artist and occultist, Austin Osman Spare is often cited as a crucial precursor to chaos magic, so much so that he is called the grandfather of chaos magic. Spare was a youthful prodigy in art, mentioned briefly by Aleister Crowley, though they later diverged, and developed his own mystical philosophy and technique in the early 1900s. In works like The Book of Pleasure in 1913 and The Focus of Life in 1921, Spare introduced the concept of the sigil as a personal magical seal charged with one's desire. He taught that by sublimating a desire into a sigil and then implanting it in the subconscious during a moment of vacuity or void mind, one could fulfill the desire without the conscious mind's interference. This method was Spare's solution to what he saw as the cumbersome and superstitious rituals of his contemporaries in ceremonial magic. Spare also formulated the idea of the Kia, an ever-present cosmic unity or chaos of possibility, and the self's magical power he termed Zas, often identified with the body and will. His mystical aphorisms, "There is no religion higher than the truth of yourself," exemplify the self-centric and anti-dogmatic bent that chaos magic would later embrace. Spare's practical legacy to chaos magic is immense. Sigil magic in its modern form is directly his invention, and the concept of achieving a special state of consciousness, gnosis, to empower magic also originates in his work. Additionally, Spare's view that gods and demons are simply complexes within the subconscious mind and can be created or extinguished by the magician prefigures chaos magic's view of reality as subject to belief. He wrote that the practitioner could create elementals to carry out their will, an early form of servitor idea. Although Spare himself did not found a school, his writings were rediscovered and popularized in the 1970s by chaos magicians like Carroll and Sherwin. They saw in Spar a kindred spirit who had been ahead of his time, advocating simplicity, personal symbolism, and psychological insight in magic. Today, Spar is revered among chaos magicians and occultists alike. His art, which is full of magical and sexual symbolism, and his esoteric ideas continue to be studied. Chaos Magick, with its focus on sigils and personal gnosis, can be viewed as a direct continuation of Spar's Zos Kia Cultus, Cult of the Self and Ultimate Reality, updated for the postmodern age. Peter Carroll is often and then we'll go next to Peter J. Carroll, who is still living today, by the way. Peter Carroll is often regarded as the co-founder and initial architect of Chaos Magick as a coherent system. A British occultist, Carroll was one of the key figures in London's occult scene in the 1970s. Finding existing magical orders unsatisfying, he partnered with Ray Sherwin to launch the Illuminates of Thanateros and to publish the first textbook of Chaos Magick, the first textbooks. Carroll's Liber Null and its companion Psychonaut are seminal works that set forth many principles of Chaos Magick. In these works, Carroll synthesizes influences from Spar, Crowley, shamanism, and emerging ideas in science, such as chaos theory, which was a hot topic in the late 1970s. Notably, Carroll introduced a concept of an 8-colored magic spectrum, linking different types of magical intention, green for love, red for war, etc., loosely to the colors of chaos, with a fictional element called octarine, representing pure magic. This was a playful attempt to systematize chaos magic without dogma, providing a toolbox rather than a theology. Carroll also articulated the strategy of paradigm shifting in explicit terms and gave chaos magic much of its unique vocabulary. Terms like gnosis, sleight of mind, or chaoist. His writing is characterized by a scientific or technical tone. For instance, he described magic as a technology of the will, subject to experimentation and refinement. Carroll did not shy away from extreme language to shock occultists out of complacency. His famous "Strangle the Last Astrologer" quote, itself a twist on an old anarchist slogan about priests, encapsulates Chaos Magick's combative stance toward occult orthodoxy. Under Carroll's guidance, the IoT grew into an international network through the 1980s, though it also faces internal conflicts, including the so-called Ice Magic Wars, a schism partly involving Carroll and other members over various issues of leadership and practice in the late 80s. Carroll eventually distanced himself from the IoT in the 1990s, but he has remained an influential author. Later books by him include Liber Chaos, which was written or published in 1992, Cyber Magic, published in 1995, and Apophenion, published in 2008, each exploring new mathematical or metaphysical angles on chaos magic. Crucially, Carroll's work often attempted to bridge magic and science. He famously drew analogies between magical phenomena and concepts in quantum physics and chaos mathematics, suggesting that magic might be understood as operating through chaotic, sensitive dependence on initial conditions or via quantum probability fluctuations. While these comparisons are more metaphorical than literal, they gave chaos magic an intellectual appeal and a futurist image. Carroll also emphasized theory more than many chaos magicians, proposing models like psychic sensor, a hypothesized mental function that filters magical intent, which sigils help bypass, and elaborating on Spar's ideas of the subconscious. In sum, Peter Carroll can be credited with giving chaos magic a framework and pushing it from a set of underground ideas into a defined, if deliberately open-ended, system of practice. His writings remain key reading for students of chaos magic. Then there's Ray Sherwin. Ray Sherwin is the quiet or co-founder of Chaos Magick, yet he played an essential role in its early development. An English occultist and publisher, Sherwin edited in a magazine called The New Equinox in the late 1970s, through which he connected with Peter Carroll. Sherwin's primary contribution is his book, The Book of Results, one of the first treatises on chaos magic practice. In it, Sherwin focuses on sigils and practical spells, sharing simple techniques to obtain results without elaborate ritual. He is credited with clearly explaining Spar's sigil method to a modern readership and demonstrating how quickly one could generate and fire off sigils for everyday aims. Sherwin's style was concise and focused on efficiency and magic, thus the results in the title. In addition to writing, Sherwin was instrumental in forming the early IoT structure. He and Carroll together defined the name and concept of the order. Sherwin also experimented with group sigil work and early Chaos Magick group rituals. In 1979, he published a pamphlet called The Theater of Magic, later expanded, which described ritual as a form of dramatic performance, aligning with Chaos Magick's ideas that one could don and doff beliefs like costumes on a stage. This work prefigured later ideas of ritual as psychodrama. Around 1982, Sherwin stepped back from the Chaos Magick scene. Some accounts say he disagreed with Carroll on the direction of the IoT or simply moved on to other projects. He became involved in Temple of Set for a time. We just talked about that last week with Michael Aquino. So it's an esoteric order unrelated to Chaos Magick, and eventually immigrated to New Zealand. For several decades, he was not very publicly active in Chaos Magick. However, in the early 2000s, Sherwin returned to publish a couple of new works, including Strange Smell in the Car, which is an occult novel, and to reflect on Chaos Magick history. In Chaos Magick histories, Sherwin is often overshadowed by the more prolific Carroll, but he's fondly regarded as the one who made Chaos Magick accessible and practical with the Book of Results, and is a key organizer in the foundational years. Then there's Paul Hine. Paul Hine is one of the best-known figures of the second wave of Chaos Magick, responsible for popularizing Chaos Magick globally in the 1990s. A British magician with a background in Western occultism and Tantra, Hine became involved with Chaos Magick in the 1990s and soon started writing extensively on the subject. His two books, Condensed Chaos, first published in 1995, and Prime Chaos, along with numerous essays and tutorial pamphlets, served as friendly, down-to-earth instructions to Chaos Magick techniques for thousands of readers. Hine's writing stands out for its clarity, humor, and openness. He demystified Chaos Magick, stripping away any hyperbole and emphasizing that anyone can practice basic techniques like sigils, regardless of prior occult training. Hine also contributed conceptually. He placed great emphasis on personal deconditioning, encouraging practitioners to examine and break down their ingrained beliefs about society, religion, and self. In an influential essay, Chaos Servitors, a useful user guide, Hine outlined practical steps for creating and maintaining servitors, thus further integrating that practice into Chaos Magick. His work often discussed the psychological aspects of Chaos Magick, acknowledging that many effects could be explained in terms of subconscious shifts, while leaving room for more mysterious interpretations as well. Importantly, Hine was on the cutting edge of using the internet to spread Chaos Magick. In the early 1990s, he and others engaged in Chaos Magick discussions on message board and listservs, making Chaos Magick one of the first esoteric traditions to have a significant online presence. Hine's essays like Cyber Magic explored how emerging cyberculture could interfere with magical practice. However, Hine was inclusive. He spoke on how Chaos Magick techniques could be applied in healing, explored the relationship between magic and sexual identity. He wrote about queer perspectives in magic and was sympathetic to feminist critiques. This broadened Chaos Magick's appeal beyond the macho chaos, I guess it's called chaos stereotype that's sometimes attached to early Carroll-style magic. Phil Hine's influence on the Chaos Magick community is comparable to Scott Cunningham's in Wicca, a communicator and educator who made the subject approachable. He continues to write and speak on occult topics, though he declared in the early 2000s that he had somewhat moved on from the Chaos Magick label. Nonetheless, his user-friendly paradigm for Chaos Magick remains a cornerstone. If Carroll and Sherwin provided the foundation, Hine provided a hospitable front door through which many new practitioners entered. As evidence of Hine's impact, several of his coined phrases and paraphrased ideas show up in the Wikipedia summary of Chaos Magick and other secondary sources. Aside from the major names above, Chaos Magick's development has included many artists, writers, and occult experimenters whose contributions are noteworthy. So you have Peter J. Carroll and Phil Hines, contemporaries. So in the 1980s chaos scene, figures like Ian Reed, Robin Bartlett, and Paula Pagani were active. Pagani compiled The Cardinal Rules of Chaos in 1985, an early record of chaos group rituals. Julian Wilde, author of Grimoire of Chaos Magic in 1990, and Joel Barocco, also known as Joel Baracco, editor of Chaos International Zine, helped diversify the literature in the early 80s. Ralph Tegmeyer brought Chaos Magic to Germany, writing Practical Sigil Magic in 1987, and later High Magic, where he included chaos techniques. Tegmeyer's work is notable for integrating chaos magic with more traditional ceremonial magic techniques. Then there's Genesis Peorage, which is, died in 2020. As mentioned, Genesis Peorage, the performance artist and musician, co-founded the Temple of Psychic Youth, TAPI, which embraced chaos magic practices. Peorage's contribution was to meld occult practice with avant-garde art and music, demonstrating chaos magic's principles in cultural events. Through industrial music subculture, Peorage and TAPI introduced sigils, and they are the TAPI sigil flashes and videos and ideas of breaking societal control, aligning with chaos magic ethos. Peorage also wrote essays on magic, such as The Psychic Bible, sharing personal techniques that owe a depth to chaos magic, like sigilization through visual art and intentional body modifications. Then, of course, there is William S. Burroughs. Although primarily known as a novelist, Burroughs was embraced by the chaos magic current for his occult experimentation. His cut-up techniques and views on language as a control system resonated strongly with chaos magicians. Burroughs even wrote a piece called The Electronic Revolution, which discussed tape recorder magic for disrupting control, a very chaotic approach of using technology as sorcery. Burroughs' involvement in the IoT as an honorary member and mentorship of Peorage link him historically to chaos magic's narrative. Then there's Grant Morrison, who was born in 1960. As detailed earlier, Morrison's contributions are primarily in the realm of pop culture and media. His advocacy of the hypersigil as a concept, using long-form art as a magical operation, and his open discussion of chaos magic at events like the Disinfo convention inspired many young creatives to try chaos magic in their own lives. Morrison, in a sense, acted as an ambassador of chaos magic to the pop culture world, showing that these ideas could have currency outside of occult bookstores, in Comic-Cons, in music magazines. Another comic writer, Alan Moore, though not explicitly a chaos magician, was for a time in the 1990s exploring ideas of chaos and even contributed an article on chaos magic under a pseudonym, Jasper Blake, to a magazine. Moore later turned to a more hermetic path, but his early flirtation showed chaos magic's reach. Then there's Carrie Thornley, born in 1938, died in 1998, and Robert Anton Wilson, born in 1932, dying in 2007. These two figures are co-founders of Discordianism, a parody religion worshiping Eris, the goddess of chaos. While Discordianism precedes chaos magic by a decade, it had a significant conceptual influence. Robert Anton Wilson, in particular, through books like the Illuminatus trilogy, co-authored with Robert Shea in 1975, and Prometheus Rising in 1983, propagated the idea of reality tunnels, that individuals can choose different models of reality. He even popularized the slogan, "Nothing is true, everything is permissible," in modern occult counterculture. Chaos magicians frequently credit Discordianism and Rawls' writing style, Robert Anton Wilson, writings as inspirational, and indeed many early chaots were Discordians. Thus, while not chaos magicians per se, Wilson and Thornley deserve mention for setting the intellectual stage for chaos magic's approach to belief and satire. And then there are the contemporary writers. In the 2000s and beyond, authors like Jan Fries, who wrote Visual Magic in 1972 and 1992, and Chaos and Sorcery, which was published in 1990, promoted a trance-based freestyle approach akin to Chaos Magic, though Freeze himself distances himself from the Chaos Magic label. His work is often grouped with it. Andrea Vidimus, Hands-on Chaos Magic, and published in 2009, is an American author who provided a comprehensive manual blending Chaos Magic with shamanic techniques. Gordon White, known for the Rune Soup blog and Chaos Protocols in 2016, and Grant Vajranald Morrison continued to spread chaos-derived ideas in modern contexts, from financial magic to pop archetypes, often merging Chaos Magic with other occult streams. This pantheon of figures demonstrates that Chaos Magic has never been the purview of one person or even a small clique. It has drawn mavericks, artists, and thinkers from various walks of life, each contributing pieces to the puzzle. The key figures share a willingness to question norms and to experiment without fear of heresy. Through their writings, art, and organizations, they have collectively shaped Chaos Magic as an evolving tradition that values individual genius and collaborative innovation in equal measure. All right, now we're going to talk about modern applications and influence. In the decades since its inception, Chaos Magic has continuously adapted to the changing cultural landscape, finding new applications and exerting influence in a variety of fields, from the practice of psychology to the creation of internet memes. In the 21st century, Chaos Magic persists less as a formal movement and more as a set of techniques and attitudes that have diffused into a cult subculture and even popular consciousness. This section explores how Chaos Magic is practiced today, its ongoing influence on occult communities, and its intersections with psychology, art, and digital culture. Today, many practitioners of Chaos Magic continue to work as solitary magicians or in small informal groups, much as they always have. One can find Chaos Magic discussion groups across social media platforms like Facebook, Reddit, Discord, etc., where enthusiasts share sigils, results, and ideas reflecting the movement's do-it-yourself spirit in an online context. The lack of hierarchy in Chaos Magic makes it naturally suited to the decentralized nature of the internet. People from different countries can collaborate on global rituals or share open-source magical techniques without needing any central authority's approval. For instance, the Ellis Linking Sigil project by the DKMU group, active in the mid-2000s, was essentially organized on message boards. Practitioners worldwide drew or painted the same sigil in their local area to magically connect those locations and assault consensus reality. This kind of networked occult activism shows Chaos Magic principles in action: belief hacking, creative symbolism, and collective will deployed via digital coordination. Chaos Magic has also permeated other occult traditions. Many modern witches and neo-pagans incorporate Chaos Magic techniques, describing themselves as chaos witches who feel free to mix pantheons and use sigils and spellcraft. The influence is visible in the general trend toward eclecticism in contemporary witchcraft. It is no longer unusual for a practitioner to, say, cast a Wiccan circle, but then summon a video game character archetype for assistance. This blending was trailblazed by chaos magicians and is now increasingly normalized. Some occult authors talk of a postmodern magic era in which rigid boundaries between systems are dissolving. Chaos Magic is a key driver of that trend, having demonstrated early on that effective magic need not come packaged with a fixed cosmology. Organizationally, the Illuminates of Thanateros still exist with semi-autonomous branches in different regions, and it continues to teach Chaos Magic to new members, although its presence is relatively quiet. Other Chaos Magic-inspired organizations have come and gone. For example, the Circle of Chaos in the 1980s, or local Chaos Magic temples in various cities. But the general inclination of Chaos magicians is against formal organization. So much of modern Chaos Magic lives in a fluid community of practice rather than official lodges. Workshops and conferences on chaos magic occasionally occur, often folded into larger occult conferences. Topics might range from social media sigil campaigns to using VR technology for astral temples, showing how practitioners constantly experiment with new mediums. Chaos Magic's greatest impact on occult culture has been to inject a spirit of liberation and creativity. Even those who do not identify as chaots have been influenced by its example. For instance, the model versus belief distinction, treating magical theories as models that can be used or dropped, has been embraced by many ceremonial magicians who have thereby become less dogmatic. The idea of psychological transference in magic, that rituals primarily affect your mind, which then affects reality, is far more accepted now, in part thanks to Chaos Magic's popularization of the concept. Additionally, Chaos Magic helped revive sigil magic broadly. One sees people in various traditions, even New Age manifestors or energy healers, using sigil-like methods, often unaware that Spar and Chaos Magic are the source. Chaos Magic has also served as a bridge between occultism and radical politics. Its focus on personal freedom and rejection of external authority resonated with anarchist and countercultural movements. In the 1980s and 90s, zines produced by Chaos Magic often included political and social commentary aligning Chaos Magic with punk and do-it-yourself culture. This is carried on in newer forms. Some leftist activist circles have employed sigils and Chaos Magic ideas in culture jamming. For instance, crafting sigils aimed at corporate logos or political outcomes. The amorphous network, Anonymous, and some meme-based movements have occasionally been tongue-in-cheek described as doing meme magic, which is essentially chaos magic by another name, influencing reality via symbols in the mimetic sphere. A notable example was the online sigil campaigns during the late 2010s, where internet communities attempted to influence political events through mass focus on particular memes. The satirical worship of the cartoon frog Keck by some communities had a structure reminiscent of chaos egregore creation. While such phenomena are not centrally organized by chaos magicians, they show how chaos magic's core idea that belief and symbol can shape reality has permeated even internet subcultures in unexpected ways. All right, let's take a break. Good Lord. I have a little bit more left, but let's just try to go through. I'm sure there's like a billion comments, but let's see. Yeah, I can't even see where I left off. There we go. All right, Logan Clark. Okay. Logan Clark says you should do an explanation about your use of AI. Popcorn Yellow Striped Smile. Spiritual Ascension writes, dark stuff indeed. Hey, Pix, good to see you. Woo Riders DJ, hey Sean, I emailed you a few weeks back. Not sure if you got it. I will email. Yeah, just email me again. For whatever reason, I missed it. Okay. Yeah, Pix, I've reached out to him for years. He doesn't respond. So Pix said, Sean, you need to interview Mitch Horowitz. Yeah, I've tried for years. He doesn't respond to any of my emails. Yeah, a week. Yeah, I only get it one day a week, folks. So tonight's the night for donkeys. Okay, so Dale Fleischer is writing, viewers may be interested in comic writer Alan Moore's recent novel, not comic, features Austin Spar as one of its major characters and is a fun read. Interesting. Oh boy, yeah, Throbbing Gristle. Jalal Jalal said, you know who always said the peeps who has serious hauntings need to seek a chaos magician. Made it common technique, but never showed the process of the practitioners involved. Dead Files. Okay, Jalal Jalal said, been a great investment since COVID and now with the Feds shut down. Okay, Conniving Bones says my intestinal fortitude feels like chaos magic sometimes. Yep. The health plan, yep, basically equals intent. Health plan says I believe none of all this stuff. 1 year ago, I'm a classically trained scientist in protein receptor binding via electrostatic adhesion and semi-retired, starting studying this stuff. Monroe Institute. Interesting health plan. I want to hear more. Spiritual Ascension writes, Chaos Magic takes a little occultism from here and a little occultism from there, a bit more from over here and there, LOL, and then bam, Chaos Magic. Magic salad. So health plan continues, then out of body led me here. I believe all this stuff now. It's all real and somewhat terrifying, actually. I think that's why our government constantly lies to us about it. Spiritual Ascension writes, would you like a side of black good with your salad? Or black goo, sorry. Okay, health plan says I'm actually more comfortable that we are in a full simulation than the other option that seems logical at the point. I mean, it's the most, it explains everything the easiest. I hate it, but you can't deny that it. Spiritual Ascension said definitely in a simulation. Okay, Jalal said FBI memo dated 6751 or FBI memo 6751 dated 1945 has a lot of Monroe Institute data that was of interest to the spooks as it related to we are the cryptids and other phenomena actually come from. They saw Talos and Locus levels. Okay. Maybe we should appreciate what is. Let's see. Delay Delau says, I always go to Mother Principal because I know it is all her dog and pony show and helping her see for what it's worth. At least I can do. All her Malkovich. Yeah, welcome to the Great Awakening. All right, I'm just rushing through, folks. Health plan saying what is happening in any understanding could easily be formed by the trickster. If there is one, we can't undo. Yep. All right, so health plan saying my 3-minute experience was also with some being which ended the download and connection. I've been unable to get back to full connected consciousness again. So spiritual ascension saying they are constantly trying to tamper with the fire creation beings, making memories foggy, questionable. Persevere, my friend, use your intent, and you can connect to anything. Health plan saying, serious question. Once we are convinced due to connecting to consciousness, how do we know what we are connecting with is real? Where's a trickster? It's the most profound. Yeah, I think only you can figure out for yourself. Spiritual ascension writes, by exercising your discernment and trusting your intuition, you know the difference between a good feeling and a bad feeling, similar concept. If it doesn't beam with love, walk away. Health plans writing, in watching Giorgiani, Valet, and conflicting opinions, I find myself more confused than Gnostic. Ghosts there? Not that I know of. Okay. Health plan saying, have most here connected via an out of body or other means. I found the experience so profound and strong that I was unable to deal with reality for several days. I've only begun meditation recently. Health plan, I've been trying to do it since I was 12 years old, and as far as I know, I have never been successful. Spiritual ascension saying, personally, I don't channel, I will only connect to my higher self. Hey, Miss Tammy, good to see you. All right. Health plan says yes, was well awake using meditation connected and was extremely intense for 3 minutes. Potent drug like, and I don't use. In any case, love this podcast and learning all I can. Thank you, Health Plan. I appreciate that. Okay. Okay. So, Health Plan saying it's great to have well educated people like Sean, Harvard, Stanford speaking these things publicly. This is far from my field, but beginning to work with a couple people regarding that space. Yeah, and Health Plan, I wouldn't even listen to me. I just interview people and pass on what they say. I'm so busy in my life that I have not had a chance to like sit down and absorb this stuff and come up with like a unifying theory. So, but I appreciate the kind words, but don't be fooled. Thank you, Spiritual Ascension, says Sean's a gem. Okay. So Health Plan is saying the more I look at the phenomenon and think of all this magic, etc., I can imagine our reality is like an L1 in coding terms. We live in this L1 and base is L0. So many other laws that we operate under. And Giorgiani was saying, imagine how could our laws deal with a hex put on somebody or someone burnt down my house with thinking about it. So the push back to in our reality L1 is so potent as we have all these man-made laws, lawyers, counts that need there to be no magic to operate properly. Yep. All right. I'm just sorry, folks. I'm just trying to like race through. Okay. So Spiritual Ascension is saying check out the Genesis 6 Conspiracy by Gary Wayne. Okay, Scott Ian saying Chaos Magic groups on Facebook were fun until the leftists chased away the free. Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Sean. She says thank you, Sean. Please take a deep breath, relax. I've had like 4 coffees today, which is 4 more than I normally have. I normally just have like diet or Coke Zero, so I have like I'm getting plenty of caffeine. Okay. Sean, increase the dose significantly. You'll get there. I know. I know. Sorry, I didn't say Dale Fleischer said that, but Dale Fleischer said that. Okay, I'm just. Whew. Okay. All right. I'm going to take it home. We have half an hour left. Oops. One more. Yes. Thank you. Please smash the like button. I appreciate that. And share and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. All that good stuff. All right. I'm going to get back to it. Just take it home. All right, so intersection with psychology. From the beginning, Chaos Magic leaned toward a psychological interpretation of magic, and this has only deepened with time. Many practitioners treat Chaos Magic as a form of self exploration and personal development, comparable to psychotherapy. The work of psychologist Carl Jung on archetypes and the collective unconscious, for instance, dovetails with Chaos Magic's practices of invoking deities or creating servitors as aspects of the self. Chaos magicians might describe what they do as a kind of applied psychology, using trance, art, drama, and belief shifts to communicate with different parts of their psyche and to break negative conditioning. Indeed, a core chaos magic exercise recommended by Phil Hine and others is to adopt and later discard an illogical belief as a means of self-knowledge. For example, to spend a week believing I am guided by cosmic entities and observing how it changes you. Then spend the next week as an atheist and compare. Such exercises echo the cognitive behavioral therapy technique of testing beliefs and highlight how chaos magic can function like cognitive training. Furthermore, Chaos Magick's approach has influenced some people in the mental health and self-help arenas. The idea of sigils has analogs in practices like writing affirmations or using vision boards, except Chaos Magick adds a twist of obscuring the statement to bypass mental censorship. The method of entering a trance state to implant suggestions has parallels with hypnotherapy. In recent years, a few writers with psychology backgrounds have reframed chaos magic techniques in psychological terms, sometimes calling it chaos personal coaching or similar. The extent of this crossover is still niche, but it indicates that chaos magic provides a set of tools for self-directed change that can be translated beyond explicitly occult contexts. On the flip side, the influence flows from psychology into chaos magic. Modern chaos practitioners are often well-read in neuroscience, placebo effect research, and NLP. They incorporate that knowledge to refine their magic. For example, understanding how the brain forms habits lends insight into deconditioning exercises. Chaos magic has become more analytical in the sense that practitioners measure success in terms of psychologists might recognize. Did this ritual reduce my anxiety? Did adopting this persona increase my confidence? In doing so, they demystify magic and make it a kind of interior alchemy accessible to skeptics. Yet, true to chaos form, many simultaneously hold that some magical results defy current scientific explanation, leaving room for mystery even as they borrow from psychology. Chaos magic's influence on art and culture is broad and often operates through the idea of artist-magician. Many chaos magicians are themselves artists, musicians, writers, or game designers who see their creative process as inherently magical. We have noted Genesis P-Orridge in music and Grant Morrison in comics. Another example is the British painter Austin Osman Spar himself, whose art was essentially sigil craft on canvas. The legacy of Spar's art can be seen in the work of modern occult artists who use chaotic automatic drawing methods to create magical sigils and portraits. In music, besides industrial and acid house scenarios, chaos magic trickled into heavy metal and experimental music. The chaos star symbol was adopted by some metal bands in the 2000s, and artists like Julian Cope and Current 93 were influenced by occult themes, including chaos. More directly, the band Psychic TV and later The Majesty under Genesis P-Orridge included spoken word rituals in their performance, effectively turning concerts into participatory magical workings for the audience. In recent times, chaos magic's do-it-yourself occultism resonates with the ethos of indie role-playing games RPG design, leading to RPGs that explicitly incorporate chaos magic paradigms. For example, the game Unknown Armies was strongly informed by chaos magic concepts in creating its occult game world featuring chaos magician-like characters. Perhaps the most visible pop cultural manifestations of chaos magic are in the comic book and graphic novel domain. We discussed The Invisibles. In addition, comic writer Alan Moore, known for Watchmen, V for Vendetta, was an open practicing magician who, while not exactly a chaos magician, shared platforms with chaos magicians and engaged with similar ideas. For instance, reality is fiction, character is egregore. Moore's friend, artist Brian Talbot, authored The Adventures of Luther Arkwright, which included chaos magic references. Chaos magic's willingness to treat fictional reality seriously has endeared it to fiction creators. It provides a framework where creating a story with intention can be seen as casting a spell. This has been influential in what Morrison and others call pop magic and culture hacking. A particularly intriguing modern idea from chaos magic is that corporate logos are actually sigils that big companies use to imprint desires on the masses. Grant Morrison articulated this in the early 2000s. The Nike swoosh, McDonald's golden arches, etc. function as massively broadcast sigils, infecting minds and shaping behavior. This perspective has influenced cultural critics and artists who see advertising as a kind of occult manipulation. Some chaos-inspired artists intentionally subvert logos, changing them or creating anti-logos as a form of magical resistance. Street art that warps corporate icons can be viewed through this lens as chaotic enchantment of public space. As hinted, chaos magic has flourished in the digital realm. Practitioners now not only communicate online, but also experiment with technological media as magical tools. For example, there are chaos magicians who create sigils on graphic design software or generate random occult prompts using computer code. The computer program itself acts as a spirit of randomness. Some explore cyber sigils that are intended to live in the electronic domain, like a viral sigil image meant to be shared on forums to accumulate collective energy. The concept of the egregore has an analog in internet culture. Any viral meme or trending hashtag could be seen as an egregore, a thought form empowered by mass attention. Chaos magicians consciously play with this, sometimes attempting to launch memes with a magical charge behind them. Virtual reality, VR, and augmented reality, AR technologies have been toyed with by chaos practitioners. One can create a virtual temple in VR where participants' avatars conduct a synchronized ritual despite being geographically apart. The symbolic possibilities are vast, and Chaos Magick's flexible framework is one of the few in occultism that can readily accommodate these futuristic practices without doctrinal strain. In a sense, Chaos Magick's magicians are spiritual hackers, and the digital world is just another system to hack for them. One should also note the continued production of new literature blending chaos magic with other disciplines. Recent work examines chaos magic alongside chaos mathematics, attempting a theoretical physics rationale, or chaos magic and quantum computing analogies, etc. Academically, chaos magic has garnered interest within the study of Western esotericism as a prime example of postmodern religion. Scholars like Egil Aspram and Colin Duggan have written about chaos magic, exploring how it represents a conscious response to living in a fragmented, pluralistic society and how it challenges the boundary between religion, play, and art. The scholarly attention itself is a modern development. Chaos magic, once in the fringe, is now cited in discussions of contemporary spirituality and culture. Whew. I think I'll drink something really quick. In modern practice, some chaos magicians have sought to integrate the insight of chaos magic with older spiritual systems in a complementary way. For example, one might practice Buddhist meditation to cultivate mindfulness while also using chaos sigils to work on specific life goals and see no conflict. Mindfulness provides clarity, sigils provide change, all within one's self-directed path. Others have combined chaos magic with shamanism, arguing that the ancient shamanic approach of entering spirit worlds is just another paradigm that can be utilized to great effect. In fact, Peter Carroll himself noted that all magical systems might derive from an Ur system of shamanism, one stripped of cultural trappings. This perspective encourages chaos magicians to learn from indigenous and traditional practices, not as dogma, but as techniques. So, for instance, using drumming for trance from core shamanism or chanting mantras from Hindu Buddhist practice as simply effective gnosis-inducing tools without adopting the accompanying belief unless useful. Finally, within the occult community, chaos magic's influence has given rise to a new hybrid subgenre. One is synchromysticism, a practice of finding mystical significance and coincidences in film, music, and historical events. Essentially, chaos magic's divinatory mindset applied to cultural analysis. Another example is chaos paganism or Gnostic Voodoo, which is Michael Berdiow's school, where eclectic spirit work is done with chaos-like freedom. There's also a movement loosely termed post-chaos, where magicians build on chaos magic's foundation, but reintroduce certain traditional elements like initiations or mythic narratives in a conscious way to add depth beyond raw technique. This shows how that chaos magic, while once the edgy newcomer, has matured to the point of influencing even those who wish to move beyond it. In summary, the modern landscape of chaos magic is diverse and vibrant. Its core contributions to the democratization of magic, the concept of belief as an instrument, and an unbridled creativity in practice have permeated occult culture and even aspects of mainstream culture through media and meme. Chaos magic today is less an identity one claims, though many do, and more an approach that can be applied within any magical or creative context. Whether it's a solitary witch crafting a quick sigil on her smartphone or a group of artists treating a collaborative performance as enchantment, the fingerprints of chaos magic are visible. And in a world increasingly interconnected and information saturated, the chaos magician's skill of navigating shifting realities and symbols seems more relevant than ever, providing tools to actively engage with the chaos of contemporary life. So, chaos magic stands as a singular innovation in the landscape of modern occultism, a tradition that paradoxically defines itself by its refusal to be pinned down by tradition. Born in the late 20th century from a confluence of occult heritage and postmodern thought, chaos magic has charted a course for individualized, pragmatic spirituality outside the bounds of any fixed dogma. Historically, we have seen how it emerged as a reaction against the perceived stasis of earlier magical orders, infusing the occult revival with new dynamicism and irreverence. Philosophically, chaos magic has introduced powerful ideas. The belief can be a conscious tool, that all spiritual systems are human-made maps rather than divine territories, and that by changing one's map, one can explore new territories of experience. These ideas echo the relativism of our era while empowering practitioners to become, in effect, artists of their own belief systems. Technically, chaos magicians have enriched the repertoire of magic with techniques like sigilization and servitor creation, and by demonstrating that even the simplest acts, scribbling a symbol, chanting a nonsensical phrase, can be potent when performed with focus, intent, and the right state of mind. The chaos magic approach stripped occult practice to its core, will, imagination, and altered consciousness. In doing so, it demystified magic, inviting a broader range of people to experiment without needing initiation or arcane knowledge. Simultaneously, it mystified the mundane, showed that even a fast food logo or a comic book character could partake in the numinous if invested with meaning. This dual movement, making magic ordinary and the ordinary magical, is a hallmark of chaos magic's legacy. Key figures like Spar, Carroll, Sherwin, and Hine provided the foundation and the dissemination of these concepts, but chaos magic, true to form, does not canonize its leaders. Instead, it encourages each practitioner to be their own guru, to verify truths in the crucible of personal experience. The movement's openness has sometimes invited criticism, for instance, that it lacks a moral compass or depth, but it has also allowed chaos magic to continually reinvent itself and absorb insights from fields as disparate as Jungian psychology, anarchist theory, and computer science. Few spiritual currents have proven so as adaptable to the internet age. For example, is chaos magic a testament to the enduring relevance of its core principle, flexibility. Academically, chaos magic has been examined as an exemplar of contemporary Western esotericism's evolution. Scholars note that it challenges the very definition of religion or magic, since it is playful and transitory with belief, more of a meta-belief practice. In a time marked by pluralism and decline of grand narratives, chaos magic may be seen as the logical product of its time, a spiritual path tailored for those who acknowledge the chaos and uncertainty of the postmodern world and choose to wield that chaos creatively, rather than be overwhelmed by it. In conclusion, chaos magic's comprehensive importance lies in how it bridges worlds, the rational and the irrational, the ancient and the futuristic, the personal and the collective. It takes the primal human endeavor of magic, the attempt to shape reality through will and symbol, and retools it for modern sensibilities, free of needless frills, yet open to all wonders. Whether one approaches chaos magic as a serious occult practice, a psychological self-help method, or an art form, it offers a framework where imagination is given primacy and change is celebrated. As the world continues to change, often rapidly and unpredictably, the ethos of chaos magic, to surf on chaos, to dance with uncertainty, and to draw new sigils in the stars of the possible, remains profoundly resonant. Chaos magic has thus secured its place as a lasting element of the occult tradition. Not a static school of thought, but an ongoing, evolving conversation about how humans can co create reality in a universe of limitless possibility and constant flux. Thank you, everyone. That ends the prepared portion of this radio show. Ooh, man, that's always a lot. So let's see what folks are saying. Not that many more. Hey, Solite US Expat. Okay, so he writes, I saw that you have an upcoming episode regarding the Monroe Institute. Does your guest talk about how to achieve OBEs? I almost went out of body. I think my body was vibrating. It freaked me out. I mean, I have an episode where Preston Dennett does that, but it's yeah, I mean, he doesn't really go into too much detail about it. You know, the Monroe Institute episode, that is. But he talks about the use of it and all that good stuff. Okay, just okay. So Jalal saying Solite, the body vibrating can indicate that you were in some resonance with Adamus, the intelligence within the atom. Okay. Okay, so Health Plan. Anybody here following Sphere Network, Patrick Q. Jackson work, etc. It's very interesting. I'm starting to hear that name more often, but I don't know too much about it. Health Plan. Solate US Expat is saying, I took a course and there are studies that show people who eat less meat and more vegan or fruit will have more obese than somebody that just eats meat. Too bad. I love it. Yeah, then that means I'll never be able to do it because I literally gag when I even smell vegetables. Okay. The Solite US Expat is saying, I know there's another technique where you make yourself exhausted. The night I almost had an OBE, I'd been going up hiking a mountain here in Korea, and I was exhausted after the hike. Okay. Hey, Foxy Joe, good to see you. I'm always on Saturday nights. Always on. Foxy Joe writes, I was just cruising my YouTube and seeing that you were on. Yeah, I'm full on carnivore too. I lost 25 pounds by doing that in the last 3 months. Except for Saturdays where I can have like potatoes and like bread and Dunkin' coffee. But some people's just genetics are, like for me, carbs are fat pills. Like if I had a pizza, the only thing I ate was like a pizza today, I would gain 5 pounds tomorrow. I would wake up 5 pounds heavier. It's just bad. So yeah. Oh, so OBVs are basically vegetable toxin poisoning. I hope not. I hope that's not the case. I have heard that before, but I also think that's just like hippie snobbery. Maybe. I hope. All right, I used up all my drinks just in time. Foxy Joe had a Subway on the weekends. All right, let me see how we're. Yeah, I'm making good progress on the subscriber end. I might actually breach 20,000 before the end of the year. Right now, I'm at 17,599. So it might still be possible. Maybe if. Let's see. All right, let's see. So Solite US Expat is saying, has future forecasting showed when our dollar will crash by any chance? I'm wondering if it will be this year and next year. And have you spoken to Lynn Buchanan lately? I have not seen anything. That doesn't mean they haven't done a remote viewing of it. And I have not spoken to Lynn Buchanan recently, other than the last interview I did with him. No new Al synchronicities, but at the beginning of the call, I talked about now I guess it's called a parliament or unkindness of ravens. There's a third one. I can't remember what it is. But it's not Congress and it's not murder. And it's a parliament of owls. I know that for sure. Spiritual Ascension is asking if I remember my avian lifetime. I don't remember any lifetime other than this one. I have no memory whatsoever. Okay, so Scott Ian is saying, oh, yeah, the FFG vid about the crash was interesting. Yeah, I can't even remember which one that was. But I just do one of these things a week. So I just kind of do them and then move on. So I just did my analysis for next week's session. So we'll see. Yeah, I've been trying my entire life spiritual ascension. I get nothing. Utilize that intent and get to remembering. Yeah, I don't even know what remembering would feel like. That's kind of where I am right now. All right, I am like way out of steam right now. Way out of steam. Yeah, I actually tried one of those, and honestly, if it felt like my brain was using the same muscle that I used to write fiction. So, so and recorded and everything. I have it like recorded, and I was thinking of adding it as like, uh, you know, behind a paywall, but it's just it's equally likely that I just made it up. Okay, so Health Plan is writing U.S. expat. The fiat crash is of high interest to me as well. I've been in Bitcoin for a long time. I think the government will print insane dollars before they ever let it collapse. We'll know when. It's closer to the big bubble. They print like mad to get us out. All right. So Fred says Scott Adams says regressions are fake because everyone remembers being a prince and no one a slave or normal. Yeah, yeah, it could be. Okay, so spiritual science says the right hand side of the brain is the side you use to picture things. Yeah, I felt like I was writing a short story. It was like the exact same feeling. So I'm very skeptical. I was less skeptical than I was after I went through it. Now I'm more skeptical. So I yeah, I would just say whatever occurred to me. But whatever occurred to me was like that's what I do when I write. you know? So, oh man. But I think my left-hand side of the brain is, like, so dominant that it's hard to. So spiritual ascension saying I'm a qualified QHHT practitioner, and it's very real. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying my personal experience just made me more skeptical rather than less, because it felt like I was writing a short story. So, like, I thought I would, like, it would unearth memories or things like that, and all it did was someone would ask, like, they would ask a question, and then I would just literally the first thing that came into my head, I would answer, and that's about it. Yeah, I know. So spiritual ascension writes, "Gotta get out of the left side." But that's what hypnosis is supposed to do, but I don't think I was doing it. Yeah, yeah, it was just okay. So health plan say is saying for people heavily left-brained, me too. It's very hard to form intent without a plan. I'm struggling with it. This as well. Solite US Expat is saying I would like to hear more about cryptids on this channel. All right, well, give me a few names and I can try to reach out and see what happens. Okay, so spiritual ascension is saying, and it feels like it's not your memories, but they are. Yeah, I mean, we also went into this like recurring nightmare that I had as a kid, and surprise, surprise, it was Gray's. Like you know what I mean? Like it was just okay. So Fred writes, I have to finish reading Drawing with the Right Side of the Brain. McMonagle recommended it. Okay, so Lon, is that Lon? Yeah, Lon Strickler from Phantoms and Monsters Radio. All right, I gotta go. It's a long, 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 long night. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Have a great rest of your weekend. God bless, and see you all next week on some other topic that I have yet to pick. So good night. God bless everyone.